Welcome to Michigan Memories Radio with Mike Hewitt and Matt Wiedenhoft. We're focused on the 60s and 70s with a heavy sprinkle of the last 100 years. From Ironwood to Port Huron, Detroit to Traverse City, Harbor Beach to St. Joseph, at all points in between of our great state. We are Michigan Memories Radio, a politics-free radio show. We want everyone to feel at home here. Let's revisit the very best of the good times together. Call us live or post and comment on our Facebook group page.
Folks, I am Mike Hewitt. Co-host is Matt Wiedenhoft. Listen, let me introduce you to what it is we're going to try to do. I love Michigan. Born and raised here. Lud, how many years have you been here, Matt?
30 years.
30 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, it is.
You're a Michigander now. Yeah, he had a big smile on his face. Listen, what I love and what brings us to this is I love history. But what's really important for me is probably the history that we've experienced. And the three folks in the studio, we've got different age groups. And I think there's a value to that. I'm in my 60s. Lud, you're in your 40s.
Yep.
Young 40s, right?
42 this year coming up.
And Jared is the one that keeps us operating, and you're in your 20s.
Yes, sir.
So when we're looking at Michigan, the reason I wanted everyone to know the ages, when we're looking at Michigan, that's the vantage. So I'm talking about old memories. Like the announcement said, probably focused most on 60s, 70s, but you're going to see me get back in the 1890s on occasion. And it's not like history where in school where you had to memorize dates and names and that was history class. This is more like nostalgia. I absolutely love it. I found that I loved it by accident, actually on a Facebook group I set up for my mother years ago before she passed away. She was in her 80s at the time. I put some pictures into a little group. She was convalescing and got a big thrill out of seeing the times that she was young in. And it started with that. And then over the last few months, that group went from just kind of there to going crazy wild with excitement, a lot of activity. And I'm watching it going, man, I love this. I'm seeing stuff that after 60 some years, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Lud, what do you think?
I love the nostalgia thing. Obviously, my nostalgia is the 80s and the 90s. But I grew up with parents who talked a lot about history, and I love the 60s and 70s because I didn't experience it. And to see the difference even between what I did experience to what was before us and then now what we are, I love it. The 80s is a cool decade. It was really cool.
So, folks, you got to understand, I'm going to probably get stuck oscillating back and forth. Matt is a professor of economics, and so I've nicknamed him Ludwig. And his name is Matt. I'm going to have a tough time getting my brain away from
it's weird for you to
calling
say
you Lud.
It's weird for you to say it because
how long have I known you now?
9 years, almost 10.
And I've been calling you Lud almost that entire time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've called you Matt before.
No.
I called you a lot of things, but probably not Matt.
Yeah, a lot of different things, not Matt, that's for sure.
All right, listen, let's kind of jump into this. I'm looking at a picture, folks. It's a horse-drawn big service car, for lack of better words. It's a Werner's ginger ale horse-drawn carriage, but it's like a delivery truck. And back then, by the way, when I say back then, let's get our brain around this. Michigan's oldest and one of the oldest pop, we call it pop in Michigan, one of the oldest pop or soda fountain drinks in the country. Werner's Ginger Ale is a Michigan company and was first served to the public in 1866. And listen, there was a Mr. Werner. It's kind of a short, neat story. Mr. Werner was a pharmacist, and he was working on a concoction and put it in a drum because he had to go to the Civil War. Literally. And he came back 4 years later. The concoction is still in the drum. And he's thinking, wow, I've got something here. And that became Michigan's first soda pop.
But he tried it. Would you leave water laying around in a cup for 4 years and go, let me give this a shot. See what
I think it was pretty sealed up. Whatever. The guy said he was a pharmacist. By the way, here's another neat thing about Werner. Mr. Werner was the first licensed pharmacist in Michigan, and his license number was number one. Think about that for a minute.
One.
Yeah, one. That's your license number. There
Sure,
you
it's
go.
6 digits. No, it's one.
Yeah, now it's like blobs of digits with dashes.
00-8 niner purple cat
Oh
473.
yeah, listen, I love those stories because when people will debate, and so now is it Canada Dry? In fact, right before the show started, we did the quick round robin. You're used to what?
Schweppes or Canada Dry?
Because you were actually born.
I lived in Virginia for like 13 years.
So that was Schweppes, and for
Yeah.
me it was Verner's. I didn't even know those other things existed.
I didn't know about Verner's. I mean, it's a Michigan-based company. It's really sold here.
But I'm a Michigan boy. I'm going, why would you want that?
But see, when I used to go to Fort Wayne,
Yep.
which is where my family was all at,
Right.
they had Faygo. And we loved Faygo. Like red pop Faygo,
Right.
unreal. Didn't know that was in Detroit either, though.
So I had a buddy that was from Michigan, moved to California, and in his young 20s, 18, 19, 20. And Coors was there back then. You couldn't get Coors west or east of the Mississippi. So when he came home on vacation, he would bring me Coors and I'd give him Verner's. True story.
I'm not sure who got the better deal there.
Listen, I like a Coors, but I like Verner's. And,
Man, I've had friends who drove out to Denver to buy Coors, like on a whim.
Yeah. And now it's just an everyday, really that's what you got.
Yeah. But my wife loves Verner's. Like they came out with the cherry one this year.
Right.
And she had to try it. She was like, I got to try this. My kids love it because their grandparents.
They're Michigan.
Oh yeah, they're born and raised here, so they love it. I'm like, I haven't tried it. I've never tried it.
Have you haven't tried it yet?
No.
Oh, I can't even believe we allowed you.
Well, ginger ale to me means you're sick, and when I'm sick, all I think of is Sprite. Then
I got to tell you, I think it's really refreshing. So I get the sick connection, and by the way, that's true with most of those sparkling kind of things. I get that, but for me, it's refreshing. I have 2 or 3 ice cubes in that, and I'm sitting out on the back deck. I'm good. I like it. So I like it a lot.
Are you still talking about Verner's or the Coors?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. All right, listen, let's change gears. Sears, you know that Sears used to sell home kits?
Sears sold everything from caskets to guns to furniture to fabric. They were the original Amazon.
They really were. It was Sears and Roebuck.
Yep.
By the way, you and I know a person named Mr. Roebuck, who was one of the children of who used to be Sears and Roebuck, and then that partnership kind of didn't last. But I'm looking at a house. You've seen them. Have you seen that house before?
Yep.
I don't know if you can see it. It won't work on the streaming. But listen, it's you see them all over the place now, and when you look at them now, they're just an old house. This is a picture from a 1916 Sears catalog. They shipped the entire house kit by rail. Most of them were built in Chicagoland, but a fair number of them and other companies built them up in Bay City, Michigan. So this was Sears's modern. The picture I'm looking at, Sears Modern Home number 2. We talked about short numbers, number 1 before. This is 264 B179. The house kit sold for $938.
And what time frame was this? 50s, 60s?
This was in the 1916 catalog.
Yeah, 1916?
1916 seems like only yesterday. But listen, Sears sold these houses, as did other companies, to your question, from 1908 through 1940. And the reason they stopped was the war. The government asked them, please stop. They needed the rough materials for the war effort following Pearl Harbor. And that's literally, once Pearl Harbor happened, most or all of these companies got shot down. But they sold like over 75,000 just from Sears, not talking about Aladdin's from Bay City and all kinds of other companies where people were buying houses. And you look at the price, you go, $938, how could that be? So we sat and did the conversion on the math. It came up to like 27,000. It was a pretty nice house. So you're still trying to wrestle with it. You can't buy a house now like that for 27,000 until you realize you're looking at a kit. And so you're not paying a contractor. This was when friends and family would get together. So, Jared's got a young wife. They're going to build a house. They buy a kit, and everybody that knows him goes over to his property and helps him build it.
All you got to do is give him a 12-pack of burners.
I don't. Have you guys ever seen what we're talking about? Where all the friends and family help somebody build something?
Well, I mean, I've seen it in present times, like the Amish do that.
Listen, when I was a young 18, 19, 20, that I caught the very tail end of that culture. So my uncle said I needed a new garage. Everybody went over on Saturday and we built a garage. I was just a kid. I was the guy, carrying the pails.
Yep.
I was hardly. No one was ever going to confuse me with a construction master, but just hauling the pails. So
No, nobody will.
what's that?
Nobody will confuse that. Don't worry.
No, at least I know what's into the of the hammer is important. I think those things are really cool. Are you two, either one of you, old enough to say you've been to a drive-in restaurant?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
You have to?
Yeah.
Not a drive-through.
Not a drive-through, a drive-in.
Okay. Because when I was a kid, they were all over the place. There were dog and suds all over many states, but especially here in Michigan.
Yeah, they still exist here.
There's
Muskegon's closed, but I think Montague's is still open.
And Montague's is for sale now.
Oh, is it really?
The last I saw was $550,000.
I got to tell you that I'm not a fan of their chili dogs.
You don't like them?
No.
I like them.
But
You know
their
what I
hamburgers
like?
were good. Their fries were good.
I like the root beer and I like the fries.
Yeah.
But I was the same with A&W, by the way.
There's an A&W drive-in.
Yep.
Up in just west of Bear Lake. I can't remember the town. My mother-in-law, where she was in home passing away, actually, there was the A&W in town there.
Right.
We ate there 6 times in 2 days because it was the only thing there, but it was drive-in.
And there's one in Ortonville, Michigan, that's still a drive-in with the car hops. You just drive up and the plate sits on your window and big glass root beer mugs. I own several A&W root beer mugs.
It's in Frankfurt.
What's in Frankfurt? Oh, the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Because I'm talking about Ortonville,
Yep.
other side of the state, southeast. You ever drank an icy cold beer out of an A&W mug?
Yeah.
I joke. I said,
At your
wow,
house.
I could have kept those folks really popular if they would let me sell them the beer.
So
quick
story about A&W, because this is how just like the American way of thinking, right? So
Yep.
A&W creates this 3rd-pound hamburger for less than the quarter pounder.
Right.
And it failed because people thought they were paying more for more at McDonald's.
Right.
The quarter pounder was bigger than the 3rd pound.
Right.
So that's what kind of sunk A&W. They said, how do we beat McDonald's? We'll make a bigger burger and sell for less. And they actually got less traction because people thought the quarter pounder was more.
But part of it is marketing and presentation. So Mickey D's has got how they picture that burger down to science.
Yeah.
So if you're just doing the quick study of it, their picture was better than their picture.
But drive-ins are making a resurgence. You ever go to Sonic?
That's really why I brought it up.
Oh, I love Sonic.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
You
Banana shake at Sonic, unreal. If you're watching, you can see why I like this thing. How I know.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That is. All right. So
they're actually bringing back the roller skating car hops at Sonic.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that'll do it.
Yep.
So they're skating.
Yeah. Have you seen those?
Mm-hmm.
You
Absolutely.
could do that.
I could. I thought about it.
Yeah, you do.
Second job. Go do some triple axles.
Now you got to tell folks why.
I'll do shoot the duck.
Well, you grew up in a roller
Yeah,
skating
I grew up in a roller skating rink. So my grandparents built their first rink in 1953.
Right.
And it was actually a hardware store. This is the cool story about this. It was going to be a hardware store, but the Korean War was starting to become realization.
Right.
And my grandpa had fought in World War II, and he said, hey, if I get called back, I got to have something my wife can run with the kids while I go fight.
Right.
So they changed it to roller skating rink because that's where they had met, was a roller skating rink. He had paid somebody $0.25 to ask my grandma to skate with him.
Right.
So they created a roller skating rink. And in 1953, they opened their first rink. And ever since, it's still there, operating today. And we grew up in that industry. We owned a roller skating rink. That's what actually brought us to Michigan.
And you've done roller hockey.
Yep.
And, of course, you're an ice coach.
Yep.
Ice hockey coach.
Ice hockey coach. But I didn't play ice hockey until my senior year because I grew up playing roller. I only ice skated twice in my life before I started playing hockey.
Oh, no
on
kidding.
ice. Yeah.
You're pretty good at it? Your kids are good at it.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I got paid to play it.
Listen, folks, you got to do me a favor. One of the things that we're going to do on Michigan Memories Radio is we're going to take callers. And I tell you, by the way, this is the pilot, so you got to bear with us as we stretch and get used to what we're doing. But the phone number for dial in, grab yourself a paper. We will put it on the show's Facebook page. But it is 616 395 1450. I'm going to say it again, 616 395 1450. If you've got a memory, if you're looking at a picture from a different time, listen, this show specifically, just so you know, to give you the heads up, I don't do politics on this show. Lud, do you do politics on this show?
No.
I tell you that because, and I don't want to act like everything was rosy in days gone by. So please don't misunderstand me. That's not what I'm saying. But nostalgia is about the good times. And we're going to look back at those times that were fun and we're going to learn some from it. Some of them, by the way, probably good that they stopped. Some of them not so much. Have you ever, before I change gears about restaurants, are you guys old enough to have spent a lot of time sitting at a counter restaurant?
Like what do you mean? Like at a pharmacy, like the old, like we're talking, or like a restaurant that has a counter at it?
Well, no, you're right. I'm glad you separated those topics. When I look back at it, it was a lunch counter,
Mhm.
is what it was, and it was kind of like the next stage from the soda fountain jerk.
Yeah.
And so Verner's had soda counters everywhere, but they became lunch counters. Pharmacies, to your point, pharmacies probably are where that concept came from. So Cunningham Drugs, Perry Drugs, and so all over Michigan was founded in Michigan. A lot of those organizations, and by the way, if you read on it, and I did because I was asking where'd they go. Speaking of politics, I thought it must be politics. It wasn't. Those pharmacies were losing their behinds on it. But my memory of it was great. It really was. I was a little kid going there with my mother, and you'd sit down and you're talking to everybody, and you get to where you know people, and so that way in the future, you're going to the meat market and you stop at the lunch counter. And you knew everybody in the community. That was one of the tools that was used to cause the community, in my view, to be a community. I liked it.
I
I
think
miss that.
we've gotten away from that, and it's more maybe a grab and go situation.
It is.
And the fact of sitting there and eating is
Right.
gone. But I've never actually been to like a Woolworths.
Um,
I remember the Woolworths.
Woolworth's Kruski's had a great lunch. Now, when I used to in middle school and high school, I skipped class every once in a while, a little bit.
Hopefully your kids aren't watching this.
Yeah, and one of the places I would go is to the Kmart cafeteria, and the reason back then you could smoke there.
So you skip school
I'm just
to go to
saying.
Kmart to smoke cigarettes.
I'm just telling you, times have changed.
What if one of your grandkids did this today?
I was recently in Florida, and I was at a. It was kind of funny because when you're in Florida, I'm a young guy in Florida.
Yeah, you are.
I'm sitting at a cocktail lounge, an outside cocktail lounge with my wife, and there's a table sitting beside us, and the lady I'm watching, she's smoking. She had an ashtray. I haven't seen an ashtray in a public setting in years.
They used to have at McDonald's. Were you old enough to see ashtrays at McDonald's?
No.
yeah.
They were little, like made out of aluminum foil,
Oh yeah.
and they would just be sitting on all the tables everywhere.
Do you know where the first concrete stretch of concrete pavement on a road was in the world?
No, I mean, if I had to guess based on that question, probably New York City or something. Maybe
Yeah.
London.
Yeah, but in truth, Woodward Avenue.
Really?
It was Route 1. It was actually originally Pontiac Road is what it was called. So Pontiac Road, before that was a trail, became a kind of a road. See pictures of it as Pontiac Road, and it was a big, gigantic mud road to the point where you're looking going, how could those old spindly wheel, Ford Model A's get down that road? Because it would have been mud up to the axles. But it was the route that you took from Pontiac to Detroit. It was not like one of the routes, it was the route. Now it's a major road. But back then there's all kinds of pictures and celebration from that era showing the first mile. And there were roads before that had top on them, but they weren't concrete. They were all kinds of natural materials that generally
Or
speaking,
like brick roads.
some cobblestone, some brick, and some drawing a blank on the on the word doesn't matter. They were materials that were like hard clay that broke apart over a period of time.
So like our roads now.
Yeah, potholes. No politics. I told
That's
you.
not politics. That's just talking about driving roads. Because listen, have you ever been to the Woodward Dream Cruise?
Oh, yeah, lots of times.
I've never been. You ever been?
No.
I've wanted to go. I heard it's
How
awesome.
can you be in Michigan for 30 years and never go to the Dream Cruise?
Well, I don't know. My wife, she said something about wanting to go because she's a car person, and I was like, yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to go.
Let's go this year.
I think it'd be fun.
Take Jared and his wife.
Hey, you guys never been? Let's all go.
It's fascinating. But listen, I'm a car guy, so I like that stuff. I've been a lot in my early life. I haven't been in a long time.
No, with it being the first concrete road, was it partially too because of so many GM companies being there testing their cars out? Or does that have nothing to do with it? Or were they the ones that did it? Or
I think it was industry saying we need to do something different.
okay.
So if you look at the old dirt roads, I'm glad you brought that up. It's kind of a fascinating not even a side note, but it used to be where you got this mud path. That's really what it was, is a mud path, big enough for two cars to literally slide by each other. For the folks that are following us on Facebook, or there's pictures of it there, and it's a wow road. But beside it was the interurban that went from Detroit, and so now I've got some Facebook friends that are part of the group that then showed me one of the guys worked for road construction in that area currently, and he shows a picture of where they're pulling up rails, and what they're doing is they're still wrestling with getting the rails out of the ground from the interurban that went from Detroit to.
And when you say interurban, you're talking about like streetcar.
Now, do you know what an interurban is, Jared?
I know the interurban transit service in Saugatuck, but
is that an actual train, or is that
as far as I'm aware, it's a busing service.
It's a busing service.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of them that identify as but the interurban was actually like a trolley car on rails. And there used to be a big map in Michigan where it would go from Detroit to Bay City to Saginaw to Grand Rapids out to the Lake Michigan lakeshore. You'd go up to Mayo, Michigan, Atlanta, Alpena, Traverse City.
Really?
You could take the interurban all over the state. And that was 1900s, 1890s up to about the 19 teens. And what ended it, because it was, by the way, it was mostly privately owned.
Yeah.
And so I've heard a lot of folks say, we need to bring that back. And if it stayed privately owned, I would absolutely support that. So if you now, it's hard to find a parking spot.
Yeah.
But what killed the interurban was independent. People wanted to be able to drive their own vehicles. So you had independent driving.
Yeah, I'm that way. I don't want to rely on a bus time, or if I want to leave now, I'm leaving now. Like you'll see charter buses for like casino trips, and it's like a 4-hour ride. I'm like, well, what if I lose all my money in 20 minutes?
All right. So now you and I went to the hockey game in Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
From the lakeshore.
Yeah.
Drive over there because you drove, so we went like Warp 9.
Yeah.
We get there, and then it was like a 3 or 4 mile walk through the tubs, or you're over the streets going through these tubes that connect all the buildings. It's great in the winter, but I'd rather the interurban dump me up out front. It'd have been safer getting there because you wouldn't be driving.
No. But did you die?
I felt like it a few times.
It's a 4-star ride. It's a 4 Black Diamond ride, you know?
Yeah.
You get what you pay for.
It's tough riding.
If you want the kiddie ride, have my wife drive you.
So, folks, in the early days of our radio, he would be running late. I'm coming in hot. So then he'd start getting messages via text of the Speed Racer cartoon character.
Yeah.
From the old days.
Yeah, I have I painted a number on the side of my car. I got sponsors. If you want to sponsor my car in the next race, let me know.
Jared, I got to ask you, just because of your youth.
Yeah.
Where do you think the oldest city in the state of Michigan is?
Oldest city in the state of Michigan?
Yep.
If I had to guess, it's probably around like Ypsilanti area.
Yeah. Would you be surprised if I told you that it was actually Sault Ste. Marie?
Oh.
Almost the top of the Upper Peninsula. And then the next oldest, St. Ignace, right at the top of the Mackinac Bridge. Do you see the pictures of the Mackinac Bridge under construction?
Yeah, I've seen those.
That must have taken some nerve.
It's amazing.
I don't know that I've got a height thing, but I don't think I want to swing around on a cable, 10 stories in the air.
I had to ride a charter bus over that bridge when I
Yep.
was coaching junior hockey. We were playing the team in the Sioux.
Was you scared? It's not like you're in a Yugo.
It was awful. The Yugo story. Listen, I'm looking out the window and the gate on the side, the railing
Mhm.
that's going to hold you on
Yeah,
is 20 feet down from my window.
right.
That's not holding this bus on here. And he doesn't drive on the inside lane. He drives on the outside lane. And I just put my head down, didn't look outside the window until we got off the bridge. No, I'm good.
I love it.
I thought about doing the bridge walk once, but
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if I can. I'm afraid of heights. You give me a step ladder, I'm crippled.
It's kind of funny because I guess I have a fear of heights, but it wasn't the bridge. It was me like at the top of the John Hancock,
Oh, no way.
thinking I'm at the top of a pencil and I can feel it swaying.
Yeah, no.
You literally can feel it swaying. And I'm going, I either need another cocktail or I got to go.
On the Sears Tower or whatever it's called now, they have a glass thing you can lean out. I've not even been up to the top, let alone I'm not standing on glass because, by the way, the glass cracked.
Can you guess what century? This is a surprise to me, by the way, that our oldest city was founded in. Because I think whenever I think of American history, my mind jettisons back to
18th century?
1776 or 1820s or
18th century?
yeah, in 1668. And then the next oldest was 1671.
That's obviously not British then.
I know it's French.
Oh,
It's the Sault Ste. Marie and St. Ignace. Then Mackinac Island, 1671 was a fort. I think it was, but you start backing into that. What must have life been like in those places in the 1600s?
man, I think that like we drove to Florida last or 2 weeks ago, and you look around and like now the roads are cut through the mountains, and you're like, man, can you imagine being somebody who discovered this world and walked over the mountain, was like, yes, we're on the other. Oh man, that's probably why cities end up just staying there where they're built because they like, I'm not moving past the city.
Right.
I already climbed 5 mountains. I see 10 more. We're going to build a city here
Could be.
because there's no way they had the gumption to keep going because you don't know what's over the next mountain. But I think that all the time in Michigan, throughout the country, like, can you imagine the tenacity it made was to think I can go that way and hopefully find something different?
Yeah, I get that. I think a lot of it had to do with trading.
Mhm.
So in this case, up in the Sioux, it was
The waterways.
it was water trading, but it was fur trading.
Yeah.
Waterways, but fur trading.
Well, the waterways allowed them to get to different ports, right?
Right.
They could travel down the rivers, they could travel down the lakes to get to the next fort, Port Detroit, and those type of things. Michigan's what I think is cool about Michigan. Having, like I said, I lived here for a long time, but I don't see that I grew up here necessarily. Is what's cool is there's so many different environments. You have the dunes on this side.
Yep.
You got the mountains and the ore and all the natural minerals in the UP, and then you have a lot of forest, and then you got Detroit, which is weird because there are huge lakes here on the east side, but they don't use it like we do on the west side.
Right.
And it's just so many different environments in the state in one little area.
It is. Now you talk about being here for a measly 30 years. I got to tell you, I think I've been multiple times to all of the rest of the 48. I think I might have missed 2. I didn't go to Maine, in Washington State. I've been everywhere else.
The 2 corners.
Yeah, I've been everywhere else multiple times. Some of it vacation, most of it business. And listen, there's things I like about those places, but none of them raised to the level of causing me to think I better go. They didn't. Even with some of the economic roller coaster Michigan has had. I get out on the toll, the 80-90 toll. I'm going, who wants to do this? Not me. And I love Michigan. I just do.
I love Michigan spring and summer. Michigan fall is not bad. I despise the winters. You gotta understand, when I was a little kid, I wore a windbreaker for my winter coat. A windbreaker.
And that's in what state?
Virginia. On the coast, Norfolk, Chesapeake, Tri-Water area.
Yep.
We got this much snow. Shut down for 2 days.
Oh yeah.
And
slippery stuff.
The first year we came here, was the first time the lake in 50 years had frozen over.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there was like 180 inches of snow that year. It was like the worst winter they had in over 50 years. We all looked at my dad and said, "Did you bring us to the Antarctic?"
Right.
We used to come up to Indiana for Christmas and stuff.
Right.
Like we saw snow. It wasn't on. The lake froze over. You could have walked from Muskegon to Milwaukee. Walked. And we got our winter coats or windbreakers. We're running the store, buying boots and winter coats and winter hat. We're like, what is all this?
Jared, in your 20s, do you think of mall shopping, going to the mall?
Occasionally.
Do you?
Yeah.
Occasionally. What is that like?
Like maybe once a month, something like that.
So,
Just
but
getting together with friends.
You'll go to a mall where there's inside access to
Yeah.
stores.
But once a
Absolutely.
month. And is it for a specific item you're looking for or just to hang out?
Usually just to get together with friends.
Okay.
Right. So the reason I ask is on the groups that we're talking about on Facebook, including on this show's Michigan Memories Radio. That's on Facebook. And then also some groups that I put together like Pontiac Waterford Memories for Southeastern Michigan. There'll be some of the folks that are my age and up that actually there's a really great blend of people in their 20s now trying to understand all the way up to some guys going, why do you keep putting these 1940s pictures? No one's alive then. And this guy that was in World War II pipes up and said, you see that spot right there? That's where I used to stand to get my newspapers. It was a newspaper delivery in 1943. And he corrected him. But listen, when a lot of those folks think of shopping, they think of downtown shopping.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll remember whatever city that they were from, not for the mall, but for the downtown district.
Yeah, going to buy their shoes at Phil's shoe store and
That's exactly right. They had
Maud's dresses or whatever.
That's exactly what it was. So in the case of Pontiac, you had Sims Department Store. They had a really super squeaky floor. I remember being a little boy going there, 7, 8, 9, 10. Little huge old building, super squeaky wooden floor. But what stands out in my mind was Christmas time because I'm following my parents and they're following feet prints that had been painted on the floor from the back to the front. And if you follow the prints, you will have toured the whole main level of the store.
Wow.
And people loved it. And then the malls took over.
And then the mid to late 70s. Really the 80s where they boomed.
Well, they may have boomed, but listen, the first one, in fact, I can tell you the first one was Rogers Plaza. First, at least in Michigan, was Rogers Plaza, which is Wyoming, Michigan,
Mhm.
suburb of Grand Rapids.
That store's closed now.
Yeah, but it was opened in 61. And so just the flip side, because I'm going back and forth between Grand Rapids and southeastern Michigan, the first one, the second to the first one was the Pontiac Mall, and that building is completely gone now.
Yeah.
But when I think of being a young person, 18, 19, 20, going on a date, going to movies, going to dinner, a lot of it was centered around the Pontiac Mall. All gone now.
Yeah, you know what's funny though is about the story you're talking is this downtown shopping, and Jared, because you mentioned Saugatuck, people were like, "Hey, let's go down and have a day trip to Saugatuck,"
Mm-hmm.
Right,
and they're essentially doing what you talked about people doing as their norm.
right,
Now it's a trip,
right.
and for me, that wasn't anything. For us, it was the mall. You went to the mall every weekend. You went to the arcade. You went to the food court. Orange Julius, unbelievable.
Sure.
Dairy Queen was in there. Our department stores, and when I was a kid, were like Leggett. Now you're talking like Macy's. I remember we moved to Michigan. Steckety's was a store here.
Sure. Yep.
But Penny's, Montgomery Ward, Sears, they were staples in these malls.
Right.
Now, how many of those are left?
But
One.
well, and Steckety's are, in fact, on my trip to Florida, I saw a number of national franchises, including Steckety's. I thought they were out of business. They're not. They're just out of Michigan.
Oh,
That shocked me, to be candid with you. It really did. But listen, when part of the other difference on shopping, because shopping, by the way, folks, is in a perpetual evolution.
Mhm.
It just is. I mean, there was chuck wagons and went to grocery stores or general stores, went to, Piggly Wiggly's, and then Piggly Wiggly said, hey, let's try letting people go pick up their own food. And the industry's going, what? You're going to let them back behind the counters where the food is at? True story. Look it up sometime.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating story. So I'm looking at the first Piggly Wiggly supermarket and the face of it inside. So you go inside and you had to go through one of those turnstiles like you'd see at a subway. But from floor to ceiling is cyclone fence. What do you call them? Storm fence.
Mhm.
It's just wired fence. You had to go through there because they didn't trust that people wouldn't help themselves. So it's kind of fun to watch. And then you end up with the department stores that I'm talking about. Every major city, if you go up to Manistee or Alpena or Traverse City, their downtowns are still really robust.
Mhm.
Holland, Michigan's got a very robust downtown. And to me, it takes me back to when I was a kid. It really does. It's that part's cool.
I like the idea. Like I go down to Grand Haven a lot. I mean, you walk the street of shops. You don't actually maybe go in and buy anything. It's just kind of, it's different.
But wait, in the winter you were whining about snow.
I don't know.
Holland's secret weapon is they've got a heated sidewalk system.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal now.
Really?
If you're
Yeah.
a true story.
Oh,
You don't need to bring your galoshes or your snow shovel.
It's all walkable.
It's all walkable.
that's so smart.
Well,
They should really advertise that.
I think they do. You're just not paying attention.
No, because I'm busy at home. It's wintertime. If I'm not in ice rink, I'm at home during the winter.
Listen, I'm a big boy fan. I don't know about you, but on this group that I mentioned from Pontiac, Waterford Memories, and actually on Michigan Memories Radio, there's a picture of a big boy restaurant. It was actually in Pontiac. Building's gone now. I think it's a drugstore. Different building, wiped it out, built a new one. But that big boy got the most, counting likes on Facebook, got the most likes of any of the pictures of that group. And there's 20, probably pretty close to 3,000 old memories kind of pictures in that group. And by the way, there's lots of groups, folks. It's a fascinating thing because there's a lot of people saying, where did we come from? How did this get here? And I can spend hours on it, just looking at old stuff and reading people's comments. Anyway, Big Boy, they're making a resurgence. And so, and what's kind of funny, because what made me think of Big Boy is we're talking about shopping evolution. So Big Boy started out as a drive-in. You drive in, car hop, the whole thing. And then somehow in the 60s, they turned into a sit-down family restaurant. And then they got on pretty tough times over the last 15 years. And now you're starting to see them with modern strip mall restaurants.
Yeah,
The Big Boy logo and all of that. But they're
getting away from the standalones and
they're getting rid of the standalones and they're attaching themselves to the upper end strip malls.
Yeah.
And I like a Slim Jim. So it's kind of fun because I'm reading the comments and you're looking at people 60s, 70s, 80 years old. I had my first date in that building. I'm going, really? I don't even want to think about that. And I'm laughing at myself because I'm
how old are your great grandkids?
yeah, my age, but I'm one of the old people, so I can't make too much fun of them.
Yeah, my grandma used to love Azar's Big Boy. I believe that's what it was called back then.
Yeah, and ours was Elias Brothers.
Yeah, she loved that place. And
Yeah.
we'd go there with her. In fact, they didn't have a lot in the South and whatever, but there's actually an arena in Michigan now, a hockey arena, 5 sheets, largest ice rink in the state. That's now called Big Boy Arena.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, their entire youth program is Big Boy, and their concession stands are owned by Big Boy. You can buy Big Boy burgers and fries and Slim Jims at the arena.
So when the Pontiac Silverdome was still standing, the restaurant there was a Big Boy restaurant. In fact, somebody just recently posted a picture of a button, one of those lapel buttons, and it said Big Boy Elias Brothers manager. So whoever that was the manager.
Well, there is one downtown Grand Rapids near the Grand Valley campus,
Mm-hmm.
and that's still standalone. They just put one in Muskegon in the shopping center and went there not too long ago. It's good.
Yeah.
I took my hockey team. I was coaching juniors to one.
Nice.
We like it. It's just it's kind of went away. Now it's coming back, so it's not in the forefront of my mind. But when I go to Detroit and I'm at the Big Boy Arena, I'm eating Big Boy because there's good food. I'm in the arena. Their whole youth program. I call my buddies' kids play for Big Boy. It's just so weird that Big Boy's now sponsoring a whole entire hockey program.
Yeah.
But listen, I got one more topic I want to touch on before we're out of time.
Yep.
But before I get to that, let me end this. Do you know why A&W is called A&W?
No, my only assumption would be it's two guys' initials.
You're right. I'm kind of surprised at you. It was Roy
It was a good
Allen.
guess.
Huh?
It was a good guess.
It was a good guess. Roy Allen and Frank Wright, 1922. First one in Michigan was in Trenton, 1937.
Oh,
They've been around a long time.
wow.
And but just like Big Boy on the comeback trail, anybody that rules these folks out that have been doing it a long time, they're making, don't bet against them.
Well, because the nostalgia comes back, right? Like you're a kid, man. I used to remember this, and then you got to take your kids because you did it.
Mhm.
Listen, it's a big deal. It really is. You get to bridge back a little bit.
There is one in Granville Mall.
Mhm.
I like to go there.
There's I do a lot of political meetings, and there's one in Grand Rapids, which is where I do most of my meetings. So I'll be talking to people, and they say, "Okay, let's meet." So okay, I'll meet at Big Boy. There's always a pause. Where did you say? And we're going Big Boy. I'm going to get a Slim Jim, and you're buying. Okay. All right. Shame on me. I listen. I like it, but it is nostalgia.
Hey, and somebody knows because I don't know why he hasn't tried to ride on me on this one. That he thinks I look like Elias's Big Boy. In fact, I
yeah.
took a selfie once with one in Detroit and sent it to him.
I got to tell you, I was going to go down that path, but I've made myself a commitment. I'm not going to tease you, lad.
It's called bowling.
All right, last topic. Tell me this, and I actually need to draw on both of you on this topic,
Okay.
and then we'll be. This is the final topic for the day, but in the early 1960s, the style of, let me give you an example. My grandfather, talking about old people, my grandfather, if he took me to Tiger Stadium, we're going to go watch a ball game in 1968, the year that the Tigers won the title. Tell me, he wouldn't have ever dreamed of going out to the Tiger Stadium or to the donut shop without a suit coat and a fedora hat. Keeping in mind he was blue collar, he was middle income, he wasn't wealthy. In fact, his first adult job was at Oakland Motor Company. We're going to talk about that next week. Not him, but Oakland Motor Company. That became Pontiac Motors. So his first job was at Oakland. He ended up being a Pontiac employee and inevitably retired as a General Motors employee. He would never go out in public without a sport coat over, whatever you want to call it, and his fedora hat. You and I've had this conversation before.
A lot.
And I look in the 1963, 64, 65, I think President JFK was probably the first president that consistently did not wear a hat. What changed? Is that a good change, a bad change, or just a change?
I know you relate to a lot of bad change at time because of our personal discussions. I think that if you look at the evolution of clothing, we've just changed. I mean, look back to, the whiter your wig, the more affluent you were back in the colonial times. The points on your hat versus not having all the things changed.
Because of my age, I might need a wig.
You probably should go back to the powdered wig, but and now that we're on streaming, we definitely want to get you a fedora. But even if you look at the three of us, like I'm in a traditional baseball hat, I got a hoodie on, jeans. You always have some kind of button-down shirt and jeans. Jared's usually got a beanie on, a sweater, and light-colored pair of pants.
It's just generational differences.
Yeah, I think it's just the generational differences.
Like eating restaurants or shopping.
Yeah.
Just changes.
The clothing changes, but fedoras came back 10 years ago. I remember I was wearing one a lot 10 years ago.
So somebody's putting
overcoats are coming back.
Somebody on one of the groups is putting pictures of teachers. This is an older fella, so he's putting teachers that he remembers 1962, 63, 64. Science teacher, English teacher, some public school, I don't even know where, in Michigan. Beyond that, I don't know where, in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Every single teacher, male, had a sport jacket and a tie on.
Yep.
Every single female teacher had a dress on. Every single picture. And these guys put 30 or 35 pictures on. Every single one of them dressed the same, spanning about a 10-year period. There's just a difference in, because it's not that way now.
When I've taught at 3 different schools. In one school,
keep in mind, folks, he's Professor Ludwig.
I had to wear a suit at one, and I was in this suit and tie, and I got students in pajama pants and a sweatshirt.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'm supposed to be projecting professionalism. Where at one school, I'll go like this. I'll wear a hoodie. I won't wear a hat. I never wear a hat because again, that's to me is not professional. So I always make sure my hair is done. And but then I have another school that just says, hey, you should be business casual. One school that doesn't really care. But I didn't feel appropriate wearing a suit because I'm teaching where it wasn't the right environment for me. Now I'll go back to when we first started this professional roller hockey league, the first meeting ever. I wore a suit to the meeting, and my business partner at times like, why would you do that? I'm just going to wear a zip up fleece
Sure.
and jeans. I said, it's the position. I'm supposed to be the president of the league. I'm supposed to be the top person. The position requires a suit and tie.
Sure.
And one of the comments coming out of that meeting was, because it was very rare in that industry of roller hockey for somebody to dress like that, my business partner had talked to one of the other owners, and after the meeting, he said he wore a suit and tie.
Right.
You guys are serious.
Right.
Because they're used to guys just showing up in either a
Yeah.
polo shirt or t-shirt and shorts. And I'm like, yeah, I'm serious. This is going to be major level. I have to present myself in that position.
So in 1984, I went to California to look at buying a franchise. I was going to buy a franchise, get some training, and then bring it home. And I showed up on day one with a suit on. And
California.
they're all laughing. They're going, you must be from the East Coast. I said, no, I'm from Michigan. Yeah, see, East Coast. I went,
How far does that coast
yeah,
go?
that's a big coast. But that was the first time I'd noticed. Now I came up, I mentioned in the car business, not from sales, but from the finance side. And I remember one fella I worked for, a company, you show up without a white shirt and a tie, a white shirt, by the way, not a blue one or a gray one, you go home. Let me know when you're dressed for success. Period.
The car industry is not like that.
Well, no, now people show up and they look like they're going golfing.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's changing times. It's just a fascinating thing when we look at cultural
Yeah, and I do think
shifts.
that if you were looking at a Ford or a Chevy today and your salesman walked out in a suit, I think you'd almost get the perception of you're about to rip me off.
See, and I'm the other guy because I think when I show up to buy an $80,000 pickup truck, if you dress like you're going polo golfing, I'm thinking, can you send me a professional? This guy's a nice fella, but can you send me somebody that's ready to do this job? There's a lot of dough.
Yeah.
And I'm not making honest, it's not a political statement,
No.
but it's my old eyeballs, and that's how I see
Now, my
things.
brother's dealership, they have Audi, Volkswagen, Nissan, Subaru, and Toyota. And the Toyota guys all wear Toyota branded stuff.
Sure.
The Volkswagen guys,
Polo shirts.
yeah, they're a little different because it's Volkswagen customer. Subaru's a little bit different, but all the Audi guys have to wear suits.
Right.
Because again, it's about dressing for that position.
Okay.
And I do think that that's the change. It's not just standardized anymore. We start looking at the clientele. What do they expect? There's so much data
So
driven
you're
stuff
playing-
in this.
Are you saying you're playing to your audience?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
by the way, are you going to a baseball game, Jared, and sitting in a wool suit at 800 degrees in Detroit?
Every time.
Oh no, listen, I don't think my grandpa wore a I don't think he wore a wool suit. He absolutely had summer and winter.
But I've seen those pictures where they're all in suits in an
yeah.
entire stadium.
But listen, it's like sitting down. If you go to Vegas, you've been to Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
If you go to Vegas and you're looking at your old albums, a lot of those places will have this as their history.
Mhm.
So you're looking at 1970 and 75, where everybody there is dressed like Dean Martin with a suit on.
Now, Vegas at night, you have to, I mean, what we would call dress up is at least a button down shirt, pants, and nice shoes.
You call that dressed up?
Well, it's minus a sport coat.
That's like it looks like you're ready to go to the doctor.
It's 100 degrees out. I'm not wearing a sport coat.
Uh,
But
I-
that's. I mean, you go to Vegas and
Yeah.
you plan out your day. You're gonna have 2 outfits a day: your day outfit and your night outfit.
yeah, I'm an old guy. I say dress for success or
Now, I
your
was raised
Sunday
that way.
best and all the rest of those.
I don't sit around at home in pajamas. My mom always said, when you wake up, dress for the day.
Definitely.
All right. Listen, folks, we're going to be streaming every Thursday at 2:00. Write this down. We're going to post it on Michigan Memories Radio Facebook page, and we do have a website also, MichiganMemoriesRadio.com. Phone number 616-395-1450. Over the coming weeks, we will start getting some guests on, but along the path, we would love your call in. By the way, if we say something wrong, if we get the wrong date, wrong building, wrong memory, call us, tell us, take part in it. I look forward to having you join, and I appreciate very much you joining with us today. Be safe, and we will see you next week.